every age, humanity invents new ways to see further. The telescope let us glimpse the stars. The microscope revealed the worlds within us. For centuries, thinkers like Leibniz, Shannon, and Turing dreamed of making all knowledge computable. But today, knowledge grows faster than our ability to understand it. Trillions of data points, a universe of information still unconnected. Now, a new instrument emerges, one capable not only of observing the universe, but of understanding it. Genesis mission will transform how science is done in America, uniting our brightest minds, most powerful computers, and vast scientific data into one living system for discovery. Built on artificial intelligence and quantum computing, it will radically redefine the scale, speed, and purpose of scientific progress in America. This is the work that will define our generation's legacy. A new revolution begins, one guided not by competition alone, but by curiosity, imagination, and the belief that discovery is the truest form of progress.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the reversion. I hope y'all can hear me. We had some audio issues last time, so hope I'm coming through here. If you're just joining, welcome in. I appreciate you being here. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I appreciate that you have taken the time to join us here. Assuming you're not with family at the moment, can consider this sort of a virtual Thanksgiving discourse with your based fellow schizo poster friends. And we're going to be covering, I think this is a pretty big topic this evening, and it has really incredible precedence that is unfolding. And so as we dive in, we're going to be exploring a lot of these themes that the so-called Genesis mission has referenced in their promotion. And so for those unfamiliar with what this is the latest executive order that Trump signed, and it was posted by the Department of Energy. And we're basically entering this phase where this narrative of the machine god is no longer this kind of fringe conspiracy theory type thing. The US government now uses this spiritual and apocalyptic biblical language to describe the AI infrastructure that's being built on a mass scale around the globe. So this has become increasingly pervasive in the AI revolution, as I'm sure you've all noticed. And this places it more in the realm of the occult cryptocracy revealing their plans hidden in plain sight, as they say, right? Because there's a lot of these terms, the symbology that's being used that is, if you understand what these references are, you can tell that it's not really by mistake. It's not by coincidence. None of this stuff is ever by coincidence. And especially when you see the kind of the combination of things that they're referring to, so for example here, let's pull up the tweet. This is what was shared. So I reposted this with kind of my commentary here. And, we'll unpack the 666 logo. I think that's kind of secondary, whether you think this is, you can see the 666 or not in the logo. I basically was thinking 6, you can kind of see it. You've seen this before in the various kind of tech logos that are for these global initiatives. Google comes to mind. Google does this. The other one is the, what is it? I think I posted it somewhere here. There's me trying to make the, outline it. Someone was like, "Whoa, I don't see it." I posted it somewhere here, the different logos. I think oh, it's this here. It's in this thread. Yeah. So yeah, CERN, right? So you see that this is kind of like a famously highlighted one. There's Google, right? So, World Economic Forum. And so these are subtle, right? Like the average person isn't going to look at this and be like, "Oh, that's the mark of the beast," or whatever. But, the point is, this has been used before. Whether you think that's intentional or not, again, I think that it's secondary because of the implications behind these initiatives. So, that's not exactly what we're going to be looking at here. Anyway, I'm not really that interested in like getting in a debate over if this logo resembles the 666 or if it's the mark of the beast. I'm not here to tell you this is the mark of the beast or anything like that. I think it certainly resembles a beast system, a prototype of it, or a form of it in some extent. But anyway, this is just something that the DOE is now framing national identity and future infrastructure in this biblical, military and scientific mythology. And it's not accidental that they combine these words here: the Manhattan Project, the Apollo mission, right? Look at this language being used here. Brightest minds in industry have answered the call when their nation needed them. Today, the United States is calling on them once again under President Trump's leadership. Genesis mission will unleash the full power of our national laboratories, supercomputers, and data resources to ensure that America is the global leader in artificial intelligence and to usher in a new golden era of American discovery. So that last sentence there, the ushering in of a new golden era. So if you understand the golden age, I mean, we've heard Trump say this pretty often, that he's ushering in this golden age. This is also esoteric. So we're going to be unpacking all of this throughout the stream, even down to like Genesis, right? Like this idea of Genesis in the AI sense, right? So, even if you set aside this kind of AI doom speculation, the utopian esoteric language here is very telling. And, we don't believe in apocalyptic fear-mongering here anyway, because we know the victory belongs to Christ. And by being recipients and participants in his divine energies, we too have already won. But, even if this is all downplayed as mere alarmism, does it really hurt to assume that the apocalypse is near? And I'm not talking in this like evangelical or Jewish sense, which involves this like ongoing tension of extreme anticipation and hastening the second coming through human actions, right? I mean, countless church fathers and saints have taught the importance of nepsis, or spiritual watchfulness, right? So this isn't something that is like that we should just close our eyes to, or just say like, "Oh, this doesn't matter. It's not worth paying attention to." I think it is worth paying attention to. I don't think it's being covered enough, actually, especially within an Orthodox context. So I'll do my best to try to like distill what's going on here. I'm not going to claim that I have the answers. I'm saying here MAGA is paving the way for the digital ID beast system. Beast system, I'm kind of using that term a little bit like in a way that I just explained, this kind of version of it, right? So like when we talk about the mark of the beast and stuff like that, it's like usually the Antichrist as well. It's usually kind of used in this sense of this is an ongoing process, right? So that's kind of what I'm referring to. It's like this is the infrastructure for this kind of system. And I know that a lot of people are starting to recognize this. And, we're going to break down like why this is going to be something that's so compelling for even people that kind of have an idea of what's going on. So welcome everyone in chat. I appreciate you all being here. Hello to my friends over on Substack if you're tuned in. We've got a pretty interesting show here. So I get people in my replies all the time, mostly non-Orthodox Christians, and they are, seemingly falling victim to this so-called doom mongering. And they'll ask questions like, what should I do? How can we stop this, right? And the answer I always give them is something, it's usually like, well, just pray as if Christ is returning today anyway, because his kingdom is within us. At least this is what I try to tell myself, although, applying that is another story. But, I'll go back to this symbol here because I did have an interesting comment that I saw in my Telegram replies when I posted this. And so let's say this isn't, I'm just crazy. I'm just seeing something that's not there. There's no 666, right? Well, this was an interesting comment. This guy said, to make matters more bizarre, that logo is an inversion of how the tree of life is situated at a point of origin. The four rivers that encircle one another, expanding outwards from the divine to the boundaries of the created world. God help us, things getting stranger by the day. So that I thought was a really interesting take on this. That you have the tree of life in the centered, and then the four rivers. I mean, you can say maybe 1, 2, like the outer. I mean, it's like, look, you can like really hyper analyze these symbols as much as you want to, to a certain point, it becomes a waste of time. Whether or not this symbol in itself has any kind of occult significance, again, I don't think that it matters. It's kind of secondary. When it comes to these symbols, my approach is usually that if there are almost like undeniable occult themes involved in the project or the initiative itself, then the symbol is more likely to represent something esoteric as well. And then you can, maybe kind of deduce what that may or may not be or whatever. But again, they're not always, they don't make these symbols very obvious. They always obscure them because that's the idea of hiding things in plain sight. So there's always some kind of obscuring going on with the making of these symbols so that they leave enough kind of plausible deniability. But anyway, that's not going to get too much into that. I think, again, it's not that important, but the Manhattan Project we're going to look at. Why does this idea keep coming up of AI being compared to the Manhattan Project? Well, there's a big reason for that. The thing is, we're looking at like this emergence of AI into global governance, right? It's almost like you have, you have kind of like two implementations of AI, right? You have like the personal use where there's, the prompting of these machines, right? Sorry, I'm just looking at something here. The preparation of the Antichrist. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just catching up on chat. I don't want to skip too much, but so, I mean, basically you have, two versions of this where, sorry, I'm looking at my notes and I thought I had some, here. Okay. Yeah. You have, you have like the personal use of AI, right? Where there's kind of this like MK Ultra effect that's going on even with that, because as people continue to become more dependent on using AI, it's kind of like, in a sense, grooming us into this mergence of AI, the direction it's going in with its development, as merging with global governance. And as people become more dependent upon it and start to just use it by default, and it becomes more integrated with our time spent on the internet, it's just gradually going in that direction with or without our consent. And so that this personal use, the MK Ultra effect I'm talking about is that, first it's causing this kind of mass confusion, mass chaos, this like hallucination effect almost. And not even in the sense that the AI, quote, hallucinates. You know how they use that term when the AI throws an error, they call it a hallucination. I think that on a bigger scale, what you have is like these hallucinations going on with people viewing AI outputs and especially imagery, where now there's this complete disillusionment with people not being able to distinguish between reality and AI. And that's going to become increasingly more difficult as these models get more advanced, right? So like AI slop will be a thing of the past because it's going to get so advanced that it's just going to be basically indiscernible from reality. So that's more of the MK Ultra effect. And then on the other side of that, you have all of these big players in tech that are now diving headfirst into surveillance and the military industrial complex. That's basically their main motive now. You have Meta, who's making their Llama AI model available to the US government for national defense and security purposes. So, I'm going to go back to here, and you'll see in their statement, and actually, we should probably look at this instead, but I'll get to this. This is the actual executive order, so we'll read through this a little bit. But yeah, you have, Meta, who's getting involved with partnering with Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Palantir, and a slew of other big tech firms. OpenAI is now partnering with Anduril, which is a major military tech company, and they're building this anti-drone system and writing an entire AI action plan for the U.S. You have Andreessen Horowitz, who's investing $500 million into the defense tech to, quote, help America move forward. So you see a lot of this language of this is, we're helping America move forward. How? They never explain how or who signed up for this. Who voted for America moving in this direction, right? They just imposed this direction on us. So it's like we're helping America move forward. So again, this language of acceleration, Andreessen famously wrote the Techno-Optimist Manifesto, which we'll look at. Actually, maybe we can look at that now, because that will actually break down a lot of this. So yeah, sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. Let's see if I have that. Techno-Optimist Manifesto. Do I have that pulled up? I know I have it somewhere. Yeah, here it is. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. This has a lot of esoteric language in it. So, it's written almost like a creed. Probably can't see it. Let me make this bigger. This is like really written like a creed, right? So there's stuff like, the economy, productivity, and growth, right? We had a problem of darkness, so we invented electric lighting. We had a problem of cold, so we invented indoor heating. We had a problem of heat, so we invented air conditioning. So it's all this glorification of tech advancement, right? And how humanity depends on technology moving forward, right? So he's referencing all these economists like Hayek, right? Adam Smith, Milton Friedman, right? So all these like libertarian economists. Now there's stuff here. Where is it? Techno Capital. Okay, he's referencing Ray Kurzweil, famous transhumanist. We believe intelligence is the ultimate engine of progress. So like this Enlightenment philosophy. There was something in here. Yeah, here. We believe artificial intelligence is our alchemy, our philosopher's stone. We are literally making sand think. So this is something that, I've talked about this a lot, but this is basically just alchemy. And the philosopher's stone is the purification. This is like the ultimate quest of alchemy. This philosopher's stone. So I've done a stream on this. You can look up my stream on spiritual alchemy, how in the Renaissance and in the late 17th century, a lot of these like esoteric Protestant sects were using the philosopher's stone as an analogy for Christ. Like they were using it kind of as this metaphorical explanation of this like inner purification that happens through being born again, like this inner transformation. But yeah, the philosopher's stone, I mean, this is something you could look at like all these Renaissance scientific revolution figures like Isaac Newton was a famous alchemist. He was the first to translate the emerald tablets into English. Right, so like this stuff is alchemy is deeply embedded in technology and scientific progress. It always has been. We're going to talk a little bit. I don't know if we'll get into Jack Parsons. I have a book on the on next year's book club list for about Jack Parsons because he's a really interesting figure who invented the jet propulsion engines that NASA uses now. And this guy was like. He was basically the successor of Aleister Crowley, and continuing his religion of Thelema, and so he was like a high-ranking like Thelemic priest or whatever, and he was basically like kind of this modern alchemist. So he was conducting all these experiments and mixing chemicals to create this like kind of magic of jet propulsion or whatever. So. Maybe that'll tie in a little bit when we get into Apollo, the moon missions. But yeah, so you can see here, this is the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. I just wanted to highlight that one part. But, this is what these people believe, right? It's like whether or not this has any basis in reality, it doesn't matter because this is the worldview of these people who are pioneering this tech and, making these huge investments and establishing these partnerships, right? So, we'll get back to this here. But yeah, so, like I said, you have this new phase that we're heading in with AI where it's almost inseparable from the government. So all of the major companies are working with the government now. Obviously, Palantir, probably the worst offender, who's, developing these it already has a database, a comprehensive digital profiles of U.S. immigrants that will be submitted to ICE agents. So you can see how they're winning conservatives. They're winning over conservatives on the right with this, right? Who doesn't like that idea? If your main thing is immigration, it's like, well, that's probably a good thing. If you can automate the deportation of illegals. Through like this massive AI database that targets them and has this big profile on it. But what does that involve? It involves everyone's in it, right? And this is the top donor to JD Vance, by the way, Palantir. So they're doing the same thing in warfare, by the way. They're building a profile of targets based on facial recognition, and then they make a kill list for an AI drone to automate attacks. And the IDF already has this in effect, by the way. They call... Sorry, but it says my mic just went out. Am I still here? Okay, I should be. I was saying the IDF already has this in effect. They call it the Where's Daddy program. They target Palestinian soldiers in their homes so that they can bomb them while they sleep. It's partly why there's so many innocent civilians that are killed. And that's likely with the help of Palantir, by the way, because we know that they are involved with the IDF. Anyway, I'll go to this. I don't know that this is like, that there's any substance to this, but I just thought it was at least interesting. Let me plug this in here. Whoops. I'm breaking up. I hope I'm coming through clear. I apologize if it's breaking up. And then, we'll get back to reading. We're going to read this. Like I said, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. This was pretty interesting. This guy's saying that there was a few months ago, there was this, I guess this DJ Anyama. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know who this guy is, but I've seen this clip before. And he was performing, I guess it was like a rave or something in Egypt. I guess the pyramids were in the background or something. And this guy is the billionaire, or his father is a billionaire owner of Francesco Milleri, the CEO and chairman of EssilorLuxottica, who signed this huge deal with Meta for smart glasses, which will be a step towards surveillance, data collection, and wearables as control. You'll be giving every single data point to train their artificial intelligence.
Progress in America. Vast scientific data into one living system for discovery. Built on artificial intelligence.
They have this big android. Here's your new AI god. Everyone's venerating it. Look at all the smartphones. Everyone's
scientific progress in America.
Recording with their smartphones.
This is the work that will define.
It's so dystopian, man. Like, you couldn't even imagine the dystopian landscape we live in now. Like, nobody could have imagined that this would be a reality in 2025. It's crazy. So, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that there's anything to that, but, we know that with these kind of, these like advancements, or let's say these revolutions, right? There's usually ritualistic elements involved. And a big part of that is like, there's always this kind of initiation into the ritual that is done unknowingly, like without the masses knowing that the ritual's being performed. They have like the cryptocracy think, this is how they think. Again, this is how they think, right? They do these kind of like gateway rituals that are ushering in this new age. So maybe that's what that is. I don't know. Just thought it was interesting. But let's go over to is this it? No, sorry. Let's go over to the executive order itself, and we'll read a little bit on this here. It just stopped sharing. My bad. Screw this. I'm going outside. Yeah, don't get black-pilled, guys. Don't get black-pilled. There's really nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. This is, the thing is, this is really, I say this all the time, it's nothing new. What we're looking at here is it's ultimately just the inevitable path of fallen man since the fall itself. And, it's appropriately titled Genesis. It's the path is Genesis to Revelation. So this is all an inversion of theosis. And, it's nothing new or special. It's just a creative remolding of apotheosis. So it's simply the next phase in advancing history towards the age of Antichrist, right? This is what separates us from evangelicals. We're not doing all this stuff where we're like anticipating and kind of like imposing that this stuff is like actualizing in reality, that like, oh, this is the mark of the beast. This is what it's going to be, like making all these predictions. We're just, looking at how this stuff unfolds, and this is certainly what it looks like. I mean, I think if you're taking this approach that it's like, oh, this is horrible. Like I want out. I want off this ride. Well, I certainly think that as this advances more and evolves further into the direction it's going in, it certainly won't hurt to take a more like neo-Luddite approach to technology. It's going to become increasingly harder to opt out of this system as we continue using the internet. I think we can all see that happening. Right? So you want to go survival mode? You want to start stockpiling? What's the harm in that? whether this is the way that the apocalypse comes about or not, or whether you see the apocalypse in your lifetime or we're in it, whatever. It's like, but I don't see anything wrong with that. You want to take that approach? Fine. As long as you know that Christ is with us, that his kingdom is within us, and whatever comes upon us, it's not going to separate us from him, as long as we remain in Christ through participation in his divine energies. But anyway, so this is the. Let me make this bigger. How long is this? This is pretty short. So this is the executive order from Donald Trump. And it's saying the purpose here: from the founding of our republic, scientific discovery and technological innovation have driven American progress and prosperity. That's very true. Today, America is in a race for global technology dominance and the development of artificial intelligence, an important frontier of scientific discovery and economic growth. And take note of these words: technology dominance, right? And they're in a race for it's a race for global technology dominance. This is where the Manhattan Project comes in. This is why they use the Manhattan Project to reference this Genesis mission, because the Manhattan Project it came about in the nuclear arms race with Germany. And so we're going to get into that more, but that's why they're referring to the Manhattan Project, and we'll see that there's even more kind of going on there besides just that. But it says, to that end, my administration has taken a number of actions to win that race, including issuing multiple executive orders and implementing America's AI Action Plan, which recognizes the need to invest in AI-enabled science to accelerate scientific advancement. We're in kind of a bit of an economic crisis here, aren't we? I mean, people can't afford to buy houses. The prices of food are going up. This is the main focus. Like, this is kind of wild. That this is like so important, this AI arms race. Well, again, if you understand that the underlying assumption here is that this is the digital version of the atomic bomb. So the government's recognizing the implications of the global scale of impact that AI is having now. So they have to enter this race. There's like no option, because like the other, if you just ignore all this stuff, it's like China's just going to dominate in AI. So it's like they have no other option but to kind of engage in this race and win it. There's a lot of so the reference to Apollo, right? What was that about? Why did they reference the Apollo mission? Well, that was the space race with Russia, right? So it's like all this stuff, they're using all this language of like accelerationism. In this pivotal moment, the challenges we face require a historic national effort comparable in urgency and ambition to the Manhattan Project. There you go. Was instrumental to our victory in World War II. And it was the critical basis for the foundation of the Department of Energy and its national laboratories. So, this order launches the Genesis mission as dedicated, coordinated national effort to unleash a new age of AI-accelerated innovation and discovery that can solve the most challenging problems of this century. AI can't even give you accurate information yet. Listen to how they're talking about it. This is the American government talking about this technology that is basically still in this kind of perpetual beta mode. And they're talking about it as solving the problems of the world, the most challenging problems of this century. And they can't even solve the problems of their own algorithms, their own LLMs. The Genesis mission will build an integrated AI platform to harness federal scientific data sets, the world's largest collection of such data sets developed over decades of federal investment to train scientific foundation models and create AI agents to test new hypotheses, automate research workflows, and accelerate scientific breakthroughs. So how many times have we seen this word accelerate already? The Genesis mission will bring together our nation's research and development resources, combining the efforts of brilliant American scientists, including those in our national laboratories, with pioneering American businesses, world-renowned universities, and existing research infrastructure, data repositories, production plants, national security sites, to achieve dramatic acceleration, again, in AI development and utilization. I get the idea, right? Accelerate. We will harness, for the benefit of our nation, the revolution underway in computing and build on decades of innovation in semiconductors and high-performance computing. The Genesis mission will dramatically accelerate, again, scientific discovery, strength. So it's like just saying the same stuff over and over. Accelerate is mentioned 6 times in this executive order, which is, in 2 paragraphs. Look at that. So, again, you got to pay attention to this language. So, acceleration is like crucial to all of this, because it just it's based on the assumption that this stuff works and it can solve these problems, and then it's like, well, just accelerate, just keep it moving. Let me just catch up on chat here for a sec. Hello to my friends over on Substack. If you're tuned in, I appreciate you being here. Over on X as well, we're broadcasting. Hello to my friends over on X. We're probably the best place to tune in is going to be YouTube if you're watching anywhere else. We got the chat going over there. Let me break to shill something here. We've got the new Reversion store. I just opened the merch shop. Thank you to everyone who's ordered some merch over here. Show you some of the stuff we got. Mugs and shirts, basically, in a patch. Kind of the initial rollout. So probably the most relevant one here for this stream. This is, I think, the best seller as of right now. Firmament enjoyer. So if you're a fellow firmament enjoyer, you can show how much you enjoy the firmament by wearing the Firmament Enjoyer t-shirt. So just a new way to kind of monetize. You guys can also donate on here. I don't know if it comes through on the stream. If you donate here, it should. If it doesn't, you'll get a personal thank you from me at any amount. So your donation will be seen and appreciated and responded to one way or another. But this is the best way to donate, I think, because it has the smallest cut. If you donate on YouTube, it's like crazy super chat cut. It's like, I don't know, something close to 10%. So this is probably the best way to do that if you want as much of your donation to make an impact. But I'm not going to dictate how you should donate, so I won't elaborate on that. Anyway, I found some interesting stuff with this, this use of the term Genesis. So here's an old NASA mission, or I guess a spacecraft that they call Genesis. Kind of looks like a watch. Doesn't it look like a watch that's taken apart? That doesn't even look real. It's just got like some gold tinfoil. Like this, if like you've never seen a spacecraft before, you'd look at this and be like, what am I even looking at? That doesn't look real. But anyway, what does this do? So this Genesis spacecraft, it spent more than 2 years collecting samples of the solar wind. The spacecraft then brought the sample canister back to Earth, where it parachuted to the ground and landed into Utah desert. Some interesting stuff here. It was like a month before September 11th. There was I saw some interesting numbers here too. I don't remember where I saw this, but I saw a bunch of references to number 6. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter, but that's just a side thing. I found that, and then there's also, if there's any like predictive programmer or whatever going on here, there was an old, I don't know what this is, a TV series in the 90s, Mission Genesis. Thought it had a pretty interesting plot. Again, make whatever you want out of this, but it's just something I found. May or may not have any significance, but a virus breaks out and leaves the humans residing on Earth doomed. However, in a desperate attempt before the end, all humanity's resources are dedicated to a crash program to produce a deep space ark capable of seeding humanity on a new world. The ship is crewed by 6 clones, teenage versions of people who achieved great works during the Ark project and equipped with the memories of their donors. Prior to its arrival, however, the crew is awoken prematurely to face the threat of the ship before their memories are complete. They must come to terms with the workings of the ship, the dangers faced by their ship, the realization that they are clones, and their ultimate destiny to save the race. So you have this idea of a virus breaking out on Earth that leaves Earth uninhabitable. So I thought this was pretty interesting because I happen to think that this all ties into the Great Reset and this like manufacturing of a global pandemic or a virus of some sort. Which, by the way, there's quotes from some of the Orthodox elders and prophets. I mean, one for example, we just read this in the book club. There's a quote from who is this? Elder Athanasius Mytilenius, who said, during former times of persecution, my beloved, a bodily form of torture was certain, but there was never any sort of direct influence of the mind and soul. In martyrdom of the last days, there will be a manipulation of the soul, and the methods used will be most satanic. Why? Because they will inject chemical substances inside you that will paralyze your nous, your volition, your freedom. It will alter your sense of personal feeling and detract your nous. These things have been tested and are widely known. Now, that's not to say like that's just any vaccine or whatever, any injection. But, you also see St. Paisios said something similar. He said, now a vaccine has been developed to combat a new disease, which will be obligatory, and those taking it will be marked. Later on, anyone who is not marked with the number 666 will not be able to either buy or sell, to get a loan, to get a job, and so forth. My thinking tells me that this is the system through which the Antichrist has chosen to take over the whole world, and people who are not part of this system won't be able to find work, and so on, whether black or white or red. In other words, everyone he will take over through the economic system that controls the global economy, and those who have accepted the seal, the number. Well, okay, so that wasn't a quote I was thinking, but he has actually mentioned that. Oh yeah, that was. Yeah, he did. He said a vaccine. So a vaccine will be developed for like as a mark of the beast. So this isn't like a foreign idea to the Orthodox prophets and elders. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think that this is going to play a huge part in the next global crisis. I think that COVID-19 was a mass war game on a global scale. I think that was like the test version of the next thing to come. And so they're establishing all of this AI infrastructure to automate this whole, to roll out the infrastructure for the next global pandemic that will be much more oppressive and unavoidable. It'll be much harder to resist. And in many ways, I think that what's going on now is probably grooming us to be, in some sense, like part of, like integrated into this kind of global computer, the supercomputer that's being built that has all this data in it. It's like they're gonna probably say something like, we're already in it. We've been using all these technologies, and they already have this data on us. They already have this huge digital footprint, right? So it's going to involve the digital IDs and all that stuff. Okay, so what else do we have? So some of the language used, that's again, I'm not saying there's anything to that, just something I was just kind of looking around, like, has this term Genesis been used before on other things that we can kind of derive something from it? But again, this is like I've never even heard of this as some like kind of off the wall TV program no one's heard of. Not that matters if there's any kind of predictive programming, but I mean, Genesis is a pretty common name too. I happen to think that it's just basically like Genesis. It's using this biblical terminology because it's referring to like the mission, the Genesis mission. What is the Genesis mission? Well, for outside of the church, it's to build to rebuild Babel. What's fallen man's mission? It's apotheosis. It's to gain, more knowledge. It's to glorify the self, to become a god, right? So that's the Genesis mission. If you're fallen and outside of the church, and we're constantly fighting that urge within ourselves too, by the way. So anyway, there's interesting stuff like this. This is something I've been gathering research on for a while. The significance of Kabbalah in computer programming and in AI. And the first name he mentions here, Isaac Asimov. So I've talked about this figure before, one of the big three sci-fi writers. These guys all are obsessed with sci-fi. All they're doing is like basically all of this stuff is just, a glorified sci-fi LARP that they're trying to create a new reality with. It seems to always go back to these big three sci-fi writers. Isaac Asimov, Robert Heinlein, and who's the other guy? I always forget the third guy's name. The androids range from Robbie, who is non-vocal, to Stephen Byerly, who may or may not be a robot. All computer languages are ultimately rendered in ones and zeros, even artificial intelligence programs. But this technology is relatively new. The concept it's hinged on is not. So that's exactly what I say. Right, so it's just a creative remolding of what's of like this ancient form of magic. Some of these examples of this pattern I find most fascinating are the most ancient. They came from Kabbalah. Integral to Kabbalah is the notion that Hebrew letters are the building blocks of the cosmos. According to mystical interpretations of the creative story in the book of Genesis, God brought the world into being by creating the alphabet, then assembled the earth and the sky by recombining the letters. God is portrayed as an architect in the Torah blueprint and creation of the world. The way that these letters of the alphabet emerge and combine has an uncanny resemblance to the combining and recombining of strings of DNA. The Sefer Yitzhar, Book of Creation, describes the Hebrew letters as having great power. Right, so I go into this in the book I'm writing because this is a really central theme of Kabbalah, of I would say almost every esoteric tradition. This idea of like the encoding of language, the mystical use of words, the invocation of divine words, divine names as a form of magic. Right, so this talks about the golem. I mean, another thing that I've talked about a lot before, So, I mean, this is what's being built. They're building a global golem. To deanimate this creature, its maker must remove the letter written on its forehead, the Aleph, which represents the oneness of God. That leaves those letters, the Hebrew word for dead, reflecting the Jewish tradition that there is no truth without God. Wow, it's pretty weird. That's pretty weird. Is that Adam Kadmon? It's just a man made out of Hebrew letters. So there's another, look, this goes into like all this biological stuff. I mean, this is like deeply embedded into this technology. There's also a paper here. Let me see this question. So they think God speaks the same language as they did, but not now. Well, they think that Hebrew is the language. So they look at Hebrew as like a magical language because they believe that God spoke the universe into existence with the Hebrew language. So they think it's like this divine tongue. That's why they think that they can use the Hebrew language to summon angels and demons, right? So they think it's this mystical language that holds this intrinsic magical property. Anyway, this is scroll up here. Computer science, the informational and Jewish mysticism. So this is all, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I'm just showing you here that there's like a good amount of research that was done on this about the tradition of Jewish mysticism being really prominent in computer science. So look, he's referencing Isaac Newton, as I did earlier. He's the model of the physical world in the 1600s, brought us to an astounding level of both understanding and mastery of the material world. So like this all involves this like reshaping of reality, this magical reconstruction of the material world. So, and again, this isn't to say that this is possible. This is what they believe. To an extent, maybe it is. I don't know. It doesn't matter because their power is limited. But this has some interesting stuff in here about computer scientists are the Kabbalists of today, combining the notions that God creates through combinations of letters and that we ourselves are created in God's image. This Jewish mystic tradition goes one crucial step past the resonance with God's creation. It asserts that we ourselves are able to create, although in a diminished way, by combining letters. In fact, for the Kabbalists, this tradition was not only an investigation of how the world was created, it was also a guide to the process of creation itself. The practical Kabbalah taught that the utterance by humans of the correct combination of letters done with the correct intention could somehow animate the inanimate. Okay, just like the golem is the physical manifestation of that. So whether it's a myth or like a real, I think it's a myth, obviously a myth, but the myth is supposed to demonstrate that, the creative power of the magical words of Hebrew, of Kabbalah. Sounds like a religion of witches doing black magic. Yeah, I mean there's that famous quote from what's his name. This is the other big three writer. I forgot his name. It'll come to me. And Elon Musk has referenced this quote. It's like the difference between. So I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like the difference between magic and technology is indiscernible or something like that, or inseparable. So I'm not saying by you using technology, you're participating in magic. It's just like, this is kind of like this kind of broader, like the presupposition that the programmers that are kind of like some of them are thinking of it this way. That's all. I definitely think that to a large extent, this idea is infused in the creation of these technologies. So there's a great lecture from Father Josiah Trenum, who talks about, he does like a whole lecture series on technology. And he was very careful with it because, you know, it's not like there's a huge amount of patristic resources, particularly about technology, and especially when it comes to digital technology, right? So what he does is he uses like art to describe it, because we do have a lot about art, because technology is kind of like a form of art. And so he dispels this whole notion that technology is neutral. That's something you hear all the time, that everyone's like, oh, well, it's just neutral. It's like you can make it good or evil yourself by using it. And he dispels that whole idea to say that it's actually not, because it's a created thing by a person or by humans. It's imposed with their worldview is imposed onto the technology or even onto the art, right? So like art isn't neutral either. You can't make neutral art by means of a person making it or creating it. The worldview of the creator is imposed into it to some degree. So with that is the purpose of it as well. The connection between this use of practical Kabbalah, just to make a distinction here, is the magical use of Kabbalah. So this is like Kabbalah in practice, right? It's the summoning of the divine names, the invoking, using all these linguistic kind of magical phrases to invoke reality. I won't get too deep. This could be like a whole other stream. I won't get too deep into this, but however, a much more powerful connection emerges in the story of the early days of MIT Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, which I was told while I was a graduate student in that laboratory in the 70s. According to the story, 3 of the most influential of the early circle of AI researchers at MIT were told by their grandfathers that they were the descendants of Rabbi Judah Loel of Prague, the famous Maharal of Prague, whose commentaries are now studied over the internet. He was also the Kabbalist who created the most famous of golems. That's wild. In the traditional story of the creation of this golem, the Maharal, assisted by his sons-in-law, after an appropriate period of fasting and meditation, shaped a huge figure out of the river clay and brought it to life after the recital of appropriate incantations and the engraving of the Hebrew word emet, truth, on his forehead. After helping to protect the ghetto of Prague from a pogrom triggered by a blood libel, the golem began to go berserk. According to the standard version of the story, the golem was then returned to dust by the Maharal, who erased the initial letter of the Hebrew word. Okay. What follows below is a variant of this story I was told while I was a graduate student. I believe I heard it. What does he say? I believe, if my memory is correct, he himself was a direct participant. Did I read this already? Oh, okay, yeah. This story occurs sometimes in the late 60s, before MIT Artificial Intelligence Lab separated a project, MAC. The AI group still consisted of a relatively small handful of graduate students, among whom were Jerry Sussman and Joel Moses, both of whom are now senior faculty at MIT. Moses is now provost of MIT. Evidently, someone noted that the first Israeli computer was called Golem. And someone else who was not aware of the above story asked why. As would be expected, this led to a telling of the story of the golem related above. Okay, so just an interesting tidbit there. And yeah, thank you, apophaticism, thank you. Any highly advanced tech is indistinguishable from magic, yes. Yeah, highly advanced tech. That's the key part of that. It's not just like any technology. I mean, a spoon is technically a technology, right? It's like a tool. So it's specifically, I think, relating to like advanced technology that's seemingly magical. Like AI is a great example of that, because it seems really mystical and inexplainable how this is all occurring. And really it's not that complicated. It's a series of ones and zeros, like any kind of computational process. And the process itself is the same. There's information being input, and then it's processed, and then and then there's an output. It's the processing part that, because it's dependent on compute and energy, that's the part that's getting really advanced. That involves like energy. So, I mean, this is why, again, this Genesis mission, if I go back to this, sorry, you probably hear my dogs there going nuts. Hey, relax. This is why they talk about energy. So fusion, nuclear, grid, right? This is all, like, it all depends on energy, because this involves this massive AI data center. How is that going to happen? How are you going to power it? Right? So there's this huge incentive for, for sustainable energy. So whether that's good or bad, you can decide, but it's fully dependent upon this. So, I mean, it's going to reshape like the way in which we, go about economics on a global scale. So, okay. What else do I have here? I kind of went through all the schizo post stuff. So, let's look at golden age, because this is another phrase that keeps being used. And this is a pagan idea from Greek mythology. The term golden age comes from Greek mythology, particularly works and days of Hesiod, and is part of the description of temporal decline of the state of peoples through 5 ages, gold being the first and the one during the golden race of humanity. Okay, and this is an idea that they use also in Hindu philosophy, right? It's almost like the same exact thing. They're just using different, like, Hindu terms for it, so that that all of human history is segmented into 5 phases or 5 ages, right? So like, if you read Guinan, he talks about this, how we're in the Kali Yuga stage according to Hindus. Like, that's been the ongoing stage, like, since I think he says it was like since antiquity. So it's actually been going on for like 2,000 years that we've been in this final stage of the Kali, or the I guess it's the 4th stage or something, I forget, but it's like leading into the final stage, like the Kali Yuga. And Father Seraphim was highly influenced by Guinan, and he kind of recontextualized his ideas with an Orthodox worldview. So that's why the Orthodox survival course is broken down the way that it is, because Guinan says that the modern world really was born in the Middle Ages, and so Father Seraphim starts his discourse in the Middle Ages, and starts from there. And you could say, I think that what Father Seraphim is arguing is that it started with the Great Schism, and I wouldn't disagree. And Saint Justin Popovich says roughly the same thing, that the first fall, there's 2 falls of humanity. The first fall was the fall of man, and the second was the fall of the Pope. So, I find this interesting, that this is an idea embedded in a Greek pagan mythology. In classical Greek mythology, the Golden Age was presided over by leading Titan Kronos in Latin authors, and it was associated with the god Saturn. Okay? So think about how all these initiatives, these missions, these technologies, like, think about how pervasive Greek mythology is in all this. So, it's basically, it's like techno-paganism. So, like, Titan, right? What was Titan? He was the god of the sky. Okay, he's these children. Let me see. So I don't even know the whole pagan. The whole pagan godhead or whatever, but proceeded. Okay, so because you could also learn a lot by just reading, because again, these names are never random. It's like, what do they mean with these names? So it's it's good to read about what these figures did. Like Prometheus is a big one that comes up in technology, right? Helios we know is the sun god, right? So there's a huge amount of I don't even know how many are in the Greek pantheon, but I always like kind of try to look this stuff up, like what this means, like Apollo, right? So you look at the Apollo program. This tells you here. So again, this all relates, right? Because they're talking about the first thing was the Manhattan Project that they mentioned, and then the second was they referenced the Apollo mission. There's reasons for that. We're going to cover probably pretty soon here the Manhattan Project, because there's really interesting stuff in there. But look at this. The name Apollo, referring to the Apollo mission, or the Apollo program, by the way. There's multiple missions. But the program name was given after the Greek god Apollo by NASA manager Abe Silverstein. Oi. Who later said, "I was naming the spacecraft like I'd name my baby." And then he chose the name at home one evening early in 1960 because he felt Apollo riding his chariot across. He felt Apollo riding his chariot across the sun was appropriate to the grand scale of the proposed program. So it's like this is like sci-fi pagan LARP. Mercury, another one. Look, these are all named. Why are these all named after Greek gods? All this Apollo, all this NASA stuff. I just learned recently that there's a crater or something on the dark side of the moon that was named after Jack Parsons, which is pretty interesting. Because again, if you know what the fact that he was the successor to Aleister Crowley, there's like a lot of really dark occult stuff involved with the Apollo mission, with the moon, right? We'll look at here. Okay, the Apollo mission, among the stars, the Freemason astronauts. So John Glenn was a 33rd degree Mason. Buzz Aldrin was that's a terrible photo. Buzz Aldrin was this is from the Scottish Rite Freemasonry website, by the way, not a random conspiratard website. Buzz Aldrin, who famously, apparently consecrated a Masonic lodge on the moon. That's a lot of people don't talk about that. You'll hear all these Christians kind of, talk about the Apollo mission as if it was this Christian thing because Buzz Aldrin brought communion with him to the moon mission. Well, they don't ever talk about how he also brought a Masonic flag with him and apparently consecrated the first Masonic lodge on the moon, okay? He didn't consecrate a church, he consecrated a Masonic temple. They were all Masons. I don't think they were all Masons, but they, the big guy, the main guys, there was like, I think maybe a majority, at least for the Apollo 11 mission, there was like, there was definitely overwhelming, representation of Masons. And these guys were all 33rd degree. So these were the highest level Masons. Like how does that happen? That you have at least 3 33rd degree Masons on the same mission. So, I mean, I don't know who all these guys are. I guess, I've seen him, Gus Grissom. So, I mean, look, overwhelming representation. So basically, I'm just showing this to say, like, look, all the stuff that they're referencing here to compare to this program, this global initiative and this AI arms race that America is, putting everything into and making it the most important thing. They're all they're talking about it like they're using this language for a reason. They're using esoteric language. They're using the things that the programs that they're referencing have esoteric occult significance, right? So you just look at what was behind this stuff and you can see that these were not, these were not Christian efforts, to say the least. These were all like the underlying theme with all of this is that it was like this, this quest for apotheosis, this kind of like ascent, this rebuilding of the Tower of Babel, right? This, glorifying man as God, Listen to how they talk about the moon mission, right? This is why they, this is why like all the I don't know what to call them, the Baptards, the Bapsphere, they hate me because I'm critical of like I talk about this stuff on Twitter, and they think that it's anti-white to downplay the moon landing. It's like it's what the white man's greatest achievement. They never argue against your points. They'll just say that you're anti-white for counter signaling it because it's the greatest achievement of man, and it was done by these white men. So there's a lot of this like kind of Faustianism involved in this, right? And you don't have to like, look, if you believe the moon landing was real, great. I'm not going to argue with you about this stuff, but I'm just saying you can just look at this and see there was definitely some kind of like really sketchy Masonic theme to all of this. And because they were overrepresented, the Masons in the Apollo mission, then you put two and two together. It's like there was probably some really sketchy stuff going on with this. Maybe it did happen, there was still some like really, there's something going on here. Yeah, you can see like, let me see here. I'll show you guys something that will move on from this, if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let me share this.
Curator here at the Scottish Rite. Hi, I'm Joshua Poole, Museum Curator here at the Scottish Rite House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. Today it is my pleasure to be able to speak to you about the Scottish Rite flag that went to the moon in 1969.
Oh.
Knowing that Buzz Aldrin would be taking part in the Apollo 11 mission, the Supreme Council thought it would be nice if he could take something Masonic with him to infinity and beyond, because he was going where no man, or Mason for that matter, had ever gone before. See what I did there? The Supreme Council felt that a flag that represented the Supreme Council and Freemasonry in general would do the job. So the flag was hand-sewn by Inga Baum, who was the librarian of the Supreme Council in 1969. The flag itself is white silk. It is edged by a band of gold and embroidered with the words, the Supreme Council, 33rd degree, Southern Jurisdiction, USA, the Southern Jurisdiction motto, Deus me umque jus, the double-headed eagle, the crown of the 33rd degree, the insignia of the Grand Commander, and the insignia of a Master Mason. After the Apollo...
people ask about this all the time, like, why is there the all-seeing eye on Orthodox iconography? Sometimes you'll see that, like on the... I think it's... sometimes it shows up on the shield of the Archangel Michael. And it's just... Masons just steal stuff. That's all it is. They just steal symbology. So, yeah, they co-opted the double-headed eagle, too.
11 mission on September 16, 1969,
no aesthetic.
Buzz Aldrin visited the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. and presented the flag to Grand Commander Luther Smith. Since then, the flag has remained in the custody of the House of the Temple's Archives and Museum Department. In an article about the Buzz Aldrin flag in the December 1969 issue of the New Age magazine, the historical significance of the Apollo 11 mission and its meaning for Masonry were discussed. So, does the landing on the moon have anything to do with Masonry? I think this article put it nicely by ending with this quote: "When man reaches new worlds, Masonry will be there." This flag's presence during the historic lunar expedition symbolizes Masonry's universal appeal. Masonry has been at the forefront of progress and human enlightenment since its beginnings, and will continue to be. This flag serves as a reminder of this. So, Masonry will always be there and will continue to boldly go where no man has gone before.
So, and the thing about Masonry is like a lot of people like downplay it because it's like, oh, all the lodges now are just like these decrepit old boomers or whatever, and it's like just this. It's been reduced to like this fraternity or whatever, which is probably true on a large scale. So it's not like there's, I personally don't think there's this like. Masonic cabal anymore, like how there used to be, in the 18th century, the 19th century. It's not as like pervasive in a sense that there's like this whole global Masonic network. I think that what's happened is over the centuries since 1717, it's like basically just embedded itself. Like Masonry has served its purpose. right? It wasn't supposed to be confided to the lodges. It was supposed to disseminate the Masonic worldview to the rest of the world, and in many cases, it has succeeded in that. So, because look at the language being used. Again, I'm going to go back to the Genesis mission. Look at the language being used. Remember what was said in that video by that nerd with the punchable face, right? Scientific discovery, driving. Okay, that's not the best one. Where's the description here? Let me go to the Twitter post here. Right, let's go to this. The nation's brightest minds and industries answering the call, and our nation needed them. Okay. The United States is calling on them once again. It will unleash the full power of our nation's laboratory, supercomputers, data resources to ensure that American global leader in this is not what I was looking for. Where's the, okay. Sorry, let me go here. There was a better explanation to this that had a lot more, where was it? Yeah, here we go. The world's most powerful scientific platform to ever be built has launched. This Manhattan Project level leap will fundamentally transform the future of America and science and innovation. Okay. Where there is like revolution, transformation, whenever you see language like that, it involves that. This is what I'm referring to. This kind of like Masonic vision. And again, I'm not talking about like this, like kind of hidden cabal network that's where they're plotting this stuff in Masonic lodges. We're beyond that now, and it's just been integrated into like technological advancement and Enlightenment thinking, right? That kind of is perpetuated in the Americanism. This is what the country was built on. This is the American dream. This is the American ethos of pioneering and innovation. This is the New Atlantis. I think it was what's his name that compared Francis Bacon to he said that Francis Bacon like kind of presented his idea of the New Atlantis to the founders or the early founders, and he had this vision of America as the New Atlantis. And so if you know anything about New Atlantis, there's like kind of this prototype of the Masonic lodges, like the Masonic network. He calls it the Solomon House. So it's like this network of these enlightened, technologically advanced, scientific innovators.
At CoolDude_5678 donated $5 through Super Chat. Really enjoy your content. I'm an Orthodox Inquirer. God bless.
Yo, thank you, Cool Dude. I appreciate the 5. God bless you too, man. Happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate that. If you're an inquirer, like this stuff is, I will give this disclaimer. If you're an inquirer or a catechumen, like, don't get too into the weeds with this stuff. Always balance this out with, this applies to anyone really, but especially for inquirers and catechumen, you should be, reading patristics, reading spiritual works. Definitely put more time into learning about the Orthodox faith. This stuff isn't, this is just what's happening in the world. But thank you. I appreciate that, man. I think at the very least, this is, showing that only the Orthodox worldview can really make sense of these things. When you understand that this is all an inversion of theosis, it points to theosis being true. It points to orthodoxy being true. The fact that the world is going in the exact opposite direction of the church and warring against it. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Look, this is why this language is important. Like when you see this stuff, like I saw this right away. I was like, oh man, look at this language. The Manhattan Project level leap will fundamentally transform. Who signed up for this? Who voted for this? No one consented to this, and they're deciding who's even behind this. We don't even know the names. Like, you can find them probably, but this is just from the Department of Energy. Okay? It's like nobody voted for this. This is just the direction they're taking us in. And I guess, the consent is that, like, again, this is just embedded in the Americanism of our ethos of our nation. This is the worldview, the philosophy that underlies all of this and justifies it all. Like, it's all Enlightenment nonsense. So, what else do we have here? Yeah, so that was the Golden Age. I think I covered that. The Apollo program. What else? So we have, let me see here. Oh yeah, let's look at the Manhattan Project. So let me see if we have anything for the Manhattan Project. I mean, I could pull up the wiki, but I don't even know if let's see. I'm interested to see if the wiki page even mentions all the experimentation. Yeah, I don't even think that. Yeah, see, okay. The Wikipedia, I don't think is going to mention what I'm about to talk about here. Okay, so okay. All right, so yeah, like I said, the Manhattan Project, it was a program. Like, again, just keep in mind, this is what they're repeatedly using the Manhattan Project as an example of the AI version of what they're doing. All right, so they're entering the global arms race for AI domination. So think of AI itself as the atomic bomb. And now we're in a global arms race to dominate the world with the atom bomb, with the digital atom bomb of AI dominance, right? And so what did that entail? Well, this all had to be justified because you're creating, an atom bomb that can wipe out an entire country or whatever. And so how do you justify such a thing even existing? Well, there has to be a justification for that. It has to be something like for defense or for war, right? There has to be some kind of like catastrophic or, some means in which it's justified for the violence that it imposes. And AI, I guess it doesn't it doesn't compare in the sense that it can blow up an entire nation. I think in many ways it's even more powerful because of the the global implications of it. But it doesn't matter. We can get into the details of that for another time. But the point here is that it's being referred to as like AI is being referred to as like the equivalent of the atom bomb, right? And so, how did the U.S. justify this entering this arms race and making it the most important thing that they were doing at the time, where they dropped everything and invested, the equivalent to $2 billion, I guess it says the equivalent to $28 billion into the Manhattan Project. $2 billion at the time was the equivalent to $28 billion. Well, it was justified with the attack on Pearl Harbor, which was a false flag. That was a false flag attack. That was, it was justified. That was the global crisis that justified it. So it was like people call the 9/11 attacks the new Pearl Harbor, since there was this kind of advanced knowledge for both of the attacks. It's referencing the backdoor theory, which is that the Pearl Harbor attack was necessary to justify saving Great Britain from by entering World War II on a full scale level. But what's odd about this reference to the Manhattan Project is that it also involved human experimentation with radiation testing for public safety. So they were injecting people with plutonium and uranium. the U.S. government was. They hired all these doctors, most of them, by the way, which were Jewish. Oppenheimer, as you know, was also Jewish. A lot of again, just over-representation of Jewish people in this experiment. And they were injecting innocent people with radiation, with plutonium and uranium. And basically, a bunch of them died from heart failure shortly after. They involved children as well. And, you know, they were like coincident. Yeah, it was, you know, it was coincidentally justified. It was covered up with the prior conditions excuse that you see with COVID. So it's like all these people had prior conditions. That's why we were experimenting on them, because they had some kind of like deathly or fatal illness or something, right? So it's like, oh, they just died from the condition that they previously had. So a lot of the same stuff you see with COVID. You know, by the way, like there's now evidence for a connection between 5G radiation and the contraction of COVID-19 from exposure to the 5G. So there's like actual like academic research on this now. So those conspiratards, those Q-tards or whatever, they were justified. They were vindicated in recent years. Anyway, so yeah, look, it's like, again, this is what's being referenced here. I don't think this was mentioned in this article. So basically it was like it was human sacrifice, right? Because they were sacrificing innocent people to test nuclear, like, yeah, radiation, how like what it does to the body when it enters the bloodstream. Interestingly, they don't mention that in this article. It doesn't seem. Experiment. Let's see, injecting. I don't know what to search. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is mentioned. So this isn't even conspiracy theory stuff. It's like pretty well documented. Yeah, there's a video. If you guys, if you're interested, we can watch. I saw a pretty interesting video on it. It was like a 15-minute thing on the Manhattan Project. If you're not familiar with it, it's like, it's probably worth watching. But yeah, it's important, you know, it's important to know about this stuff. Again, this is like what the U.S. government just announced yesterday, that they're entering like the Manhattan Project 2.0 with AI. Yeah, that's true. Kash Patel. Yeah, they need sacrifice for magical power, so Satan gives them the technology for nukes. Yeah, I mean, yep, that's very true. And this was, by the way, at the time, you know, this was in the 1940s. It was kind of like the precursor to, like, you saw all this stuff. I mean, it was right before MK Ultra. I don't think it was related to MK Ultra. But, you know, after World War II, this is like closer to Vietnam. You had the sexual, you had all these revolutions that came after, right? The sexual revolution, the hippie movement, right? All this stuff. And then what came along with that was like the first wave feminism, which was actually developing at this time too. And you had the more mass human sacrifice ritual of abortion started around this time. So again, there is that theme of like human sacrifice is done as this kind of like initiation ritual into this new world or whatever. It always involves killing of innocent people. So it's wild that this was done. You know, this is by the U.S. government in the 1940s. Like, this is not, again, this is like this idea that the government will kill people in these like experiments is not new. So yeah, I didn't read this article. It looks pretty big, but I would doubt that that's mentioned in here. But there's you know, substantial evidence that this was a real thing that was occurring. I mean, there's videos of it, there's documents and stuff. So the Wikipedia is not a good place to look for this kind of stuff. But so let's get back to the Genesis mission, right? Like, what does this entail? Okay. Think about the Genesis mission, right? Let's go back to here. All right, again, we went over Apollo, right? The Apollo mission. This is great, seen as like the greatest accomplishment of mankind. Again, what are the two similarities between the Apollo mission and the Manhattan Project? They involved an arms race. So for the Apollo mission, it was the space race. So who gets to the moon first? It was a race with Russia. And then with the Manhattan Project, it was the arms race to build the nuclear bomb first in a race with Germany to enter World War II. So that justified entering World War II. And so think about it. What does that entail? Well, it entails it entails war. So like there's got to be warfare involved, right? Think about the fact that all these AI companies that are driving the innovation are all involved in defense. They're all heavily investing in defense now. It's basically, AI is basically a military defense technology at this point. And if it's not completely now, it will be very soon. That's the direction it's going in. Like I said, there is a personal use case for it. It's being used by the platforms we're on. It's being used in the chatbots and whatnot. I happen to think that we're basically lab rats for the testing of the use of AI on this military scale. I think that's the civilian use case for it. So you have this civilian use case, and then you have the military use case, which is the real, the real where all the money's being invested. Because why is it free for us? Why is AI basically free? I mean, you can get the premium subscriptions and whatnot, but that's not where they're making their money. It's not just from that. So the real money is in the military, the defense and the surveillance implementation of it. So we're just test dummies for it. And so, again, with all this stuff with entering the AI arms race and the energy and military implications, and the fact that all these leading AI companies are heavily invested in defense, it's like, well, you can see where this is going. I don't have to explain that much after that. That kind of entails that there's going to be this like weaponized usage of it for defense purposes, for surveillance. It's all going to be justified. At least in their view, it's going to be justified. Or if it's not justified for us, they'll make a case for it to be. Because think of Pearl Harbor, right? Think of Pearl Harbor. Think of COVID. These manufactured crises that justify the mass population. Being forced to sign on to something that they might otherwise disagree to. So the precedence has to be set for the justification of the mass use of something that maybe a lot of people are not really cool with, and I think that something's going to happen. Probably again. Another global crisis, like a virus or something. I think that COVID was an experiment for that, for what's to come. I could be wrong about that, but I just happen to think like how are they going to do this whole digital ID thing where everyone in the world is going to have a digital ID? How are they going to justify that? Even though look how many people are against that idea. Like even boomers and stuff, like they all are kind of like sketched out by this idea of a digital ID. So there has to be something that happens where that is like, it's not an option to not have a digital ID. That has to be strongly imposed upon us. And especially if it has any kind of biblical significance, any kind of apocalyptic revelation kind of context to it. Where it does involve like some kind of mark of the beast. Because we know that even the elect many of the elect will receive the mark. Or not, maybe not the elect, but like, I don't know. I forget how it's phrased, but the point is like people who are against getting the mark of the beast, who are very conscious of it, like even many of those people will get it. That's how immense the pressure will be. I don't own a doomsday bunker for when all this goes down. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to have to get a bunker. Look, again, I think that, you know, it's, I'm not against prepping. Like if you're a prepper, that's great. I know priests who are preppers. I think there's a solid case for being a prepper, whether this is what's going to happen or whatever happens. Like, it's just like, you're just prepping. You don't really exactly know what you're prepping for. You're just prepping for like the power grid going out, the internet going out, whatever, you know, like just surviving in the worst case scenario. There's no problem with that. Like go for it, man. I think that's a good, investment, you know, invest in whatever asset you think might have sustainability in an economic crash, in a crisis where the dollar, collapses, right? Whether you think that's going to be Bitcoin or gold. I won't get into like how I think crypto is going to play a part in this. I do think it will. So, you know, whatever I think that the safest asset is hard assets, bullion. That's not going anywhere. The whole power grid goes down. How are you going to get your Bitcoin? So, you know, that's just me, but I've kind of become more of a boomer on that kind of stuff. I used to be really heavy into Bitcoin, and now I'm trying to diversify into harder assets. Try to save up for land or whatever. You know, you don't have land and something happens. It's like, God help you. But, God is with us though. God is with us, and whatever happens, we already won. Christ won the victory. He won the victory. And so by us partaking in his victory, we won too. The worst they can do is kill us. And then that just brings us into the presence of the Lord. So that's the worst case scenario, is we enter the presence of God. So that's why you don't really need to get all doom and gloom and think like, oh, this is doom posting or whatever. It's like, worst case scenario, I'm, by God's mercy, I'm entering his presence. Lord have mercy on us all. But I want to make sure I covered everything here. Oh yeah, there's getting back to the Manhattan Project. I don't really have anything to show for this. So, oh yeah, let me show this first, and then we'll get to the Manhattan. I'll read something about the Manhattan Project that you'll find interesting. Hey, check this out. They're doing war games for a secret pandemic again. And remember what we were talking about with the naming of these pagan deities? School lockdown again in secret pandemic drills. Exclusive. Exercise Pegasus imagined a virus deadly to children spreading around the world from the island in Southeast Asia. This was reported on November 25th, by the way, yesterday. So, Exercise Pegasus. Anytime you see that, look that up. What is Pegasus? Pegasus. Oh, just, sorry, went off. One sec. Let's see if we can get any information from this. It's a white stallion, right? So I think we all know that Pegasus is a horse. It's the white stallion that's sired by Poseidon. The brother of Chrysaor, Medusa's blood when the mother was decapitated by Perseus, right? It's like, you just read a little bit about this mythology and you could probably see some kind of theme that's coming out here. I don't know that. Yeah, I didn't look into this myself, but point is, it's like, okay, it's a horse, right? It's like, what does that mean? Maybe it means nothing. Maybe they picked a random name. That's usually not the case, but you can do your own kind of conclusions on that. But it's just interesting that it's always a pagan deity that they name this stuff after. So this is more war games that are happening. Here we are in the end of 2025, and they're still doing these pandemic scenarios. Exercise Pegasus was designated a Tier 1 national emergency exercise, meaning it involved ministerial participation all devolved nations, and activation of COBRA, Cabinet Office briefing rooms, to simulate a realistic pandemic scenario, and is the first of its kind in nearly a decade. Wow. The choice of an enterovirus is good choice because it's a real possibility with real risk, but it's different from what we've seen before. All right, so you saw all these war games happening before COVID. You know, what was that? I forget the name of that war game, that war game that was ran by I think it was the World Health Organization. Project, it's like Project, I forget the number, like 32 or something like that. Was it Agenda 34 or something like that, right? Where they had this like mass war game that involved a global pandemic of an outbreak of a virus. It was like, you know, whatever, 6 months before the COVID pandemic broke out. So I'm not saying that this means that it's coming soon, but it's like, what, like they're still doing this stuff, right? I pray to Christ every day that'll all be over soon. Well, I wouldn't expect it to be over soon, but keep praying. Just pray that he gives you the strength to bear what's coming, you know? I think that's probably I don't think things are going to get better. I mean, this is the direction things are going. Look, we've been moving in this direction for all of world history. It's all going towards the end of the age. Why would things get better on a broader scale? So yeah, I mean, I just thought this was pretty interesting. This is happening now in the same day. Look, this was reported in the same day that the Genesis mission. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more of these. Okay, they might be prepping us. They might be. I happen to think, this is just my take, I just happen to think that like COVID-19 wasn't this isolated incident. Like I think that was in itself like a global war game. I think that was the experiment. How we'd react, you know, how much of the population could get vaccinated, how much of the population would push back, would there be any like revolts like on a large scale, like, well, you know, how much could they get away with, right? Did the justification work? Did, you know, whatever, there's like so many aspects, right? But I think that was probably a preparation of a larger thing that's going to happen. They already proved it, you know, that scares people enough that it worked pretty successfully. So, you know, this stuff is all like, look, all the AI stuff, it's all surveillance and military defense. So it could be a real war, like it could be a pandemic, it could be both. Like, who knows, man? The point is, they're prepping for something. So, yeah, let me go back to, what was I going to show before this? Oh yeah, let me read something about the Manhattan Project here. Then I'm almost through with my material. Yeah, and I mean, you should fight back. Like, fight back how you can, you know, like fighting back often means, in this case, like resistance. It's like resisting what's being imposed upon us. Like the mark of the beast, for example, you're going to have to resist that. That's fighting back. So I'm going to read something. This is from Joe Allen's book, Dark Aeon. I had Joe Allen on a previous podcast. I don't remember exactly what I titled it. It was earlier this year. I want to say it was something about cyborg theocracy, titled something like that, about transhumanism. But this was from his book, Dark Aeon. So he said, okay, so this is and the book is about transhumanism, by the way. It's called Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. So it says, many axial age figures saw history as a series of ages which deteriorate from purity into decadence. That's what I was saying before about this kind of separate, like this distinction between certain ages throughout world history, the Golden Age, the Iron Age, right? And then you have, it correlates with the way that they view it in the Hindu model. And so the Greek poet Hesiod described this cosmic descent as a divine golden age, a devout silver age, a war-torn bronze age, a rejuvenated heroic age, and his own dismal iron age, where selfishness reigns and the moth shall rust all treasures. The Roman poet Ovid said much of the same. You'll recall that the Hebrew prophet Daniel interpreted the Babylonian king's nightmare of a golden kingdom giving way to a silver kingdom and then a bronze kingdom. Finally, there will come an iron kingdom mixed with clay, a multicultural madhouse, which will be smashed and replaced by the kingdom of Yahweh. The Hindu lawgiver Manu, as well as the Mahabharata epic, also described 4 ages or yugas of cosmic deterioration. These are the pure Satya Yuga, the tarnished Treta Yuga, the tolerable, and the final dissolution, the end of the miserable Kali Yuga. So the end of the Kali Yuga is the last of the present age that we're in, named after the black goddess of time and destruction. While watching the first atomic mushroom cloud rise on the New Mexico desert in 1945, the bomb's father, Robert Oppenheimer, famously recalled a verse by Krishna in the ancient Bhagavad Gita. Oppenheimer was himself a religious wanderer, and this Hindu passage resonated. Now I am become death, said Krishna, destroyer of worlds. In the original Sanskrit, death is written as Kali, which also means black or time. According to this tradition, Kali is the final face of God before the renewal of creation. In each account, after this cataclysmic finale of the last transition, we have the promise of the new golden age. Sounds familiar, right? Sorry, let me switch screens here because I think we're done looking at the screen share. One doesn't have to accept these prophecies as literally true to appreciate their insight. I agree. As with the cycles of nature, human societies rise and fall. It's notable that many axial seers believed their age was approaching the lowest point in the cycle. As we look over the ruins of their fallen worlds, it's obvious they were correct. So it was and it will be again. Writing at the close of World War II, the esoteric traditionalist Rene Guénon saw the modern worldview as a disillusion of our ancestors and spiritual anchors. With an eye towards scientism, he described machine culture as the reign of quantity over primordial quality. Having swept away everything of value, our age would see the rise of a counter-tradition, a synthetic inversion of true religion. This dark aeon, he believed, would make way for the Antichrist. Everything that is sacred will be profaned, and everything profane will be held up as sacred. He was unsure if this figure would be one man or many, or if he would even be a human at all, but the Antichrist would undoubtedly be the ruler of an upside-down kingdom. And I think that's actually pretty similar to my understanding of how the church fathers, many of the saints and elders in Orthodoxy view the Antichrist, as it may or may not be an actual person. It may be like kind of a collective mind, almost like an inversion of the mind of the church, right? The phronema, like almost like the Antichrist is the inversion of that. So it becomes kind of the collective global mind. It could be something like that. Could be a real figure, right? Maybe a machine, we don't actually know. But we know that it's a real, we know that it is Antichrist. It is the counter, the antithesis of Christ. So the opposite of Christ. So Christ was incarnational, right? It was God incarnate. So that, maybe that means something like, it won't be incarnate, right? If it's the inverse of Christ, if it's the anti of Christ, Christ was a God incarnate. Well, I mean, it makes the apotheosis part makes sense because Christ was the God, or Christ is the God man, and the Antichrist will be the man God. So does that mean humanity, outside of the church, will become a man god, like collectively, or does that mean it's a figure? Again, we don't know, but yeah, that's from my understanding. I could be wrong about that, but I'm not an authority on this stuff. I'm not here to speak as an authority. The Antichrist will have purple hair and cry in the streets. I mean, you can look at the book Antichrist, the Fulfillment of Globalization by G.M. Davis, which I think it was our first book that we read in the book club a couple years ago. And it has a lot of the, he does a great job of distilling kind of like all of the things that the prophets and elders of the Orthodox Church, the fathers, have said about to describe the Antichrist, all these characteristics. And one of them is actually based in Daniel, that he's going to be a homosexual. So like, again, maybe that just means like, if it's like a figure, maybe he's a homosexual person, or maybe it means like the collective is becoming gay or something. I don't know, but you can look at that book for like more details on that. All right, I think I've covered quite a bit here. It's been a couple hours. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to everyone over on Substack. I'm sorry I missed some comments there. I'm going to read a couple here. Damien Longan, if you're still viewing, he said, I think it will be a while before that happens. Honestly, I think it's a sleeper. The sleeper street prophecies are happening. He says, hard assets for sure. You think the elite hold digital tokens? Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do, but it's this is like a whole other topic that I could get into, but it doesn't matter if we believe their prophecies. What matters is they believe them. I completely agree. Pantalemion. I totally agree. I've been saying that. It doesn't matter if we believe all this stuff. What matters is they believe it. So they're using all this terminology. They're making these comparisons to these other events that happen or whatever. All the esoteric, the magical beliefs, right? All this stuff, like it doesn't actually matter if it has real power or not. They believe it does, and they're trying to impose this reality upon us. That's what matters. Totally agree. So that's what we're trying to do here, is like understand that spirit in which they're operating, so that we can identify it and, avoid that basically. Because I think I think it's as it gets, like, as it progresses, it's going to be harder to discern that. So the challenge is not getting like too focused on this stuff. To have like a balance, right? Like the royal path, like to like have some knowledge about it, not be like extreme one way or the other, but to just be watchful, know what's going on, know about this stuff and how they operate, and, continue on the royal path. Easier said than done, though. The Peter, I failed to mention this, but, in regards to like this use of biblical terminology, this is becoming more prevalent. The use of yo, Alan, thank you, man. What's up?
Atalan Wong 4767 just donated a $25 gem. Happenings brewing, blessed Thanksgiving, every Sunday, and Nativity Fast. Old calendar today is St. John Chrysostom.
Well, blessed feast of St. John Chrysostom for my old calendar friends. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate the 25, man. Good to see you here. And blessed fast as well. And happy Thanksgiving. Yes, all of that. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. For me, got an hour until it's Thanksgiving, whatever that means. But yeah, like it's, forget what I always lose my train of thought when I get it's the best kind of interruption, to be honest. But, I was saying like this use of biblical language, how it's becoming more prevailing in, the naming of these technologies, of these initiatives in AI in particular. You're starting to see this merging with, this kind of acknowledgement of biblical themes, right? You have Peter Thiel now doing these like lectures on the Antichrist. Like, why do we care about what this guy says about the Antichrist? He has all these opinions about the Antichrist. I don't even know what denomination even are you, bro? Like like what kind of Christian are you? No one knows anything about this guy's beliefs until he talks about them on a podcast. And then it's like the fact that anyone's even listening to him about any kind of spiritual realities or whatever. It's crazy. But, these guys are becoming more subtle in their recognition, or less subtle rather, in their recognition of their involvement in like spiritual worldviews of biblical worldviews, acknowledging it to some degree. A lot of the esoteric stuff as well. Like you have Elon Musk talking about building this global supercomputer, like the biggest supercomputer in the world, headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee. I got this wrong when I mentioned it on a previous podcast, but it's in Memphis, Tennessee. And he said specifically that he chose Memphis, Tennessee, because it was the capital of ancient Egypt, Memphis. So there's this recognition of, Egyptism, which is, perceived in a Renaissance world, it was perceived as like the primordial wisdom, like the prime Prisca theologia, the oldest theology. It was like anything from like Egypt related to Moses, anything like that was seen as like the highest level of wisdom. And so you see a lot of themes of Egypt, pagan mythology, all this stuff that they're naming their programs after. And now biblical stuff is becoming more prevalent. And, Elon also is like talking about demons, right? He's saying like AI, perhaps we're summoning the demons, stuff like that. Perhaps Memphis is where our new God will emerge. He's saying all this stuff like just openly. So this is becoming more, they're being more open about this idea that they are traversing the path of from Genesis to Revelation, from the worldly perspective. Yeah, Egypt, Babylon, Persia. Yep. Yeah, Thiel there's something really off about Thiel. Obviously, there's something really bizarre about these people. Mark Zuckerberg is into Kabbalah now. I remember him on Joe Rogan talking about this Kabbalistic prayer he wears around his neck and like an amulet. So, these guys are all into spirituality. It's no longer this purely materialistic thing like it used to be. So this is one of the shifts that's happening now. So we're going from like Silicon Valley being this hotbed of whatever you want to call it, wokeism, like all the kind of revolutionary like cultural Marxist stuff. I cringe at like using those terms, but all the LGBT and the activism and stuff, like they're kind of shifting from that to now being more involved in like spirit, like kind of like spiritual machines, like they're more so now acknowledging that what they're after. And a lot of it is anti-woke now, by the way. So like they've kind of shifted to now being anti-woke, and it's all just spirit of the age, right? It's like they're just going with the trends. Maybe they're setting the trends to a certain extent, but now they're just going along with like the next phase of this evolution, which is getting into the military industrial complex. So, and they're leveraging the political discourse for that too, by the way, which is why a lot of right wingers are signing on to this, knowingly or unknowingly, especially with what Palantir's doing with this digital ID database, or this using facial recognition and being involved in the military industrial complex with Israel. So you leveraging the political part they're leveraging is the anti-immigration. So they're going to use a lot of this stuff against us. If it seems like they're on our side now, that'll change. These people it's completely like amorphous, like their worldview. It's like it'll just shift like overnight. So all this stuff is just happening. Like you almost like can't even keep up with it. Again, their whole ideology is accelerationism. So they're just chaos magicians. Like it's just to accelerate the advancement of this technology to the point where we can't even comprehend where it's going. So this whole effort to like censor, or not to censor, but to regulate AI development, it's just like it's a LARP. Like it's never going to happen because it's programmed so that it can't be regulated in any way. You can create all these policies, but they're always going to be like 10 steps behind the advancement of this technology. It's already too late to even have that discussion, in my opinion. Musk, Thiel, Zuckerberg, they were all born in test tubes. You can tell because their face is always squished. Yeah. They have like the technocrat physiognomy. Yeah, it's a real thing. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm starting to become redundant. And so thank you for listening to me ramble and kind of stumble my way through this in the usual kind of disorderly manner. Didn't have like a formal presentation here, but I hope you kind of have an idea now of, at least you can see that this stuff has occult significance, right? So even if you just want to look on the surface level and say, well, they're referencing these known occult programs, these occult operations. And, you know, I don't know if anything that I have speculated here is true or not, but if you just look at what they are referencing, you can kind of start to think maybe like this is what they're getting at. So, you know, the fact that they're moving in this direction of military defense and security, surveillance, there's a reason for all that. They don't invest billions of dollars for no reason. You just follow the money. So even if you want to take off your tinfoil hat, just follow the money. And you can just see that they're all investing billions and billions of dollars into these defense programs, and you know, they're just fully integrated with the government at this point, and it's just going to get worse. So we're all using government technology in our homes now. It's crazy. And don't forget the internet itself started that way. It was it was invented by not the DOD, but was it the DOD? It was a government entity that invented the internet. So even the internet itself is like military industry technology. Anyway, yeah, I'm losing steam here, but yeah, thank you all. I appreciate you guys. I love you. God bless you all. Happy Thanksgiving once again. Enjoy time with your family, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless you all. I'll be back. I don't know when. You know how these things work. I just kind of announced I'm going live, but probably at some point next week, maybe, unless something happens. So I'll see you then. Take care, everyone, and God bless.